So formally, thank you so much and welcome to this discussion around aligning IT transformation with growth potential. I want to just start with a very brief setting of context. And we all are aware that the financial services industry has long been known for early technology adoption. And yet the pace has accelerated considerably with technology now transforming virtually all aspects of the industry. While we are not we don't have banking representative today, but from banking services to insurance claims to investments to credit card processing to personal trading apps, to loans, everything is now getting disrupted through the digital channels. Now, because of the fast rise of fintech disruptors, current CIOs, as well as I think CIOs across FSI in general are accelerating investments in leading edge technologies, whether we talk about AI, ML, IoT, data analytics, in order to stay relevant and gain advantage. And today, the digital innovation within the FSI industry is not only about streamlining operations and transactions, but it is also about transforming products, services, and business models. In fact, delivery of financial products and services through digital channels saw record transactions. Several new digital-based financial products and services were successfully launched into the market during the pandemic period. Now, meanwhile, increased customer expectations are raising the bar for convenience and security. And any digital native or financial technology fintech startups are encroaching on the traditional territory. Therefore, the competition has further increased, demanding the need for adopting digital. Now, what I want to cite here a research report that highlights a fundamental shift in the CIO role in the FSI industry, which in turn is indicative of the changing role of digital technologies in the industry. The Financial Services CIO of 2025 report claims that CIOs of the finance sector are acting as primary drivers in fundamental industry change, and they're wanting to now spearhead business growth and set their company up to become part of the next generation of financial services. And CIOs in financial services expect their authority to increase even further. And more than half believe that they will head a profit center within the next 5 years. And they will play a key role in identifying new business models and revenue streams to better serve customers, empower employees, and increase efficiencies in the back office. So financial services CIOs will be responsible for delivering new digital payment services, new types of financial instruments, mobile applications, and other digital processing innovations. And indeed, 59% of financial CIOs surveyed believe that technology will drive large or very large changes in product development within the organization. So therefore, to stay ahead, financial services CIOs must continue to aggressively adopt new and emerging technologies, but also spot where to prioritize and how do they prepare and guide their organization towards the enormous cultural shifts that come along with these technologies. So let us now deliberate on some important areas, keeping this context in mind. Let me formally introduce the panelists. I have with me Abhishek Kothari, co-founder and chief product and data science for FlexiLoans, Anil Sinha, CTO early salary, and Ramkumar Venkatesan, Senior VP of Engineering at Cashfree. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining today for this discussion.
Thank you, Shipra.
Thank you.
So maybe Abhishek, we can start with you. And we saw that almost all the businesses turned towards digital during the pandemic, and there is pressure to streamline operations. So how are you reinventing and innovating your digital infrastructure to maximize operational efficiency and agility? So I believe now you are a new age organization, and therefore, you would not have the legacy burden with you. So is it easier for you, and how are you innovating your infrastructure?
I mean, you're right, Shipra. We are a digitally native company, like many of the panelists here. And yes, while the challenges that we see will be lesser compared to a legacy organization who does not have that much of technology penetration, but the fundamental shift that we are seeing is technology is not a vertical as it was in many organizations. It's now horizontal. Almost everything that we are doing today has the technology first element in it. And it's an important aspect to note, because when you do surveys and you ask people what you want to do, and then you look at the budget allocations of how much are they really allocating towards that change, you will see a dramatically different picture. So, and organizations like us who adopted technology from day one and a reason to exist is technology, ever since pandemic hit, for example, and you have to shift your entire working ways from a in-office to a work from home. Now that itself is a big technology aspect and a nightmare to manage. And we are agile enough. Today we are a company of 250 people, all working from home and delivering 3x more output than what we were when we were pre-pandemic. So but our ability to go from X to 3x in this time period is possible because we were natively allowing technology to penetrate into every decision making that we do. And I mean, of course, we use IT as a very broad word. So at least my perspective is that we should break it down further. There is technology, there is product, there is data science, and then there is the rest of the hardware and software part of it that are managed in an organization. And today, about 80% of our spend actually goes in these 4 areas. And that's the fundamental shift that we've done, that where an organization would spend 20% on technology and these aspects, a typical digital native pre-pandemic was spending about 50-60%. That is moving to 75 to 80% of the spend in these areas. And that is a fundamental shift that we are seeing as an organization, because it is giving us X to 3x returns in a very limited period of time.
Right. Thank you so much for giving us that perspective. So Ram Kumar, did you see any new innovations, coming out of your operations during the last 18 months of the pandemic? Because the most challenging time is also when you innovate. There are more opportunities to innovate. So on the digital front, any new innovations that you saw coming out of your organization?
Shipra, yeah, the question is new innovations that we took out to the market, right? Or within the organization?
It could be anything.
Okay.
Essentially, how digital helped you, probably this, I think most of the innovations today are digital led. So it could be within the organization to streamline your operations, or it could be in the form of new products and services going into the market.
Okay. Yeah, I think, all of us are in the fintech space, and a tremendous amount of innovation happening. As you said, the COVID has accelerated the digitalization of commerce, of transactions in the past couple of years, right? So we more than 3x growth in terms of our merchant size. We serve about 100,000+ merchants, and they're across the board, right? So we've gone to tier 2, tier 3 villages, and in the payment gateway side as well as the payout side, we brought all these folks into the digital commerce space, right? So, and people are now able to get even sort of instant loans, settlements, which should have taken days and days or weeks before. Now it can happen in a matter of minutes, right? So easy access to credit, fast access to credit, and also the right access to credit. Right. So we do a lot of analysis to make sure that what is the right settlement, what is the right advanced sort of a loan that they would need based on their incoming transactions. And that has helped the cash flow of several small-time merchants across India. Right. So I think that is a very impactful innovation that has come out of Cashfree. And similarly, right, because all the refunds, right? I think today e-commerce is taken away in a big way, and part of it would not have been happening if the refund processing, if any issues happen, the reconciliation of those things were not electronics. So all that has happened. And today someone can pay cash to buy their product, but then they can get an instant refund. There's some issue with the product. So we've enabled those kinds of things. And I think all the innovation that has happened in the payment space, in the fintech space, has allowed all the e-commerce and D2C brands, everything to thrive based on all these innovations. So we've also empowered entire industries to be built on top of the fintech space. So as a company, we've innovated and brought together a lot of products to.
Thanks for those examples that you gave. So Anil, from your perspective, how did you actually scale up your IT infrastructure? Because again, the demand on the digital side has increased exponentially. So did you face any issues with scaling up your infrastructure or streamlining your IT infrastructure, or were you prepared well in advance because of your existing investments in digital?
Yeah, similar to like other folks, right? We are all a fintech company. So we have been a digital only from day one, so last 5 years. So there's no fundamental shift in the strategy per se from the pre-COVID and the post-COVID environment, since that was the direction we always have been. But yeah, having said that, with the change of the ecosystem become more and more digital, so that means expectation has become much more robust, much more the customer has become much more demanding and everything, right? So to enabling all these things, we work through a couple of things. If we have to talk through, maybe I can take 3 key things that happened during this period. One is that we ended up building a new platform for which is salary card. It's a pure digital card. So this is something we use pandemic as a time to focus on a card program. So we launched a pure digital card. And then we also worked on the another aspect of the business, which is, you can call it like a embedded finance. When we say embedded finance, like you can consider it like a buy now pay later, where we work with the edtech partners, and then we work with let's say insurance and other partners, where in their ecosystem finance is embedded. So from the customer point of view, it's become a seamless journey. And due to this pandemic, I think many traditional players also realize the importance of being digital, and this also gives us a lot of a partnership opportunity. So we evolve our platform for being enabling a quick partnership. So let's say we have an open API stack, then we have developed SDK and iframe, so that wherever there is a partnership opportunity, it can be plugged in very well. So for example, in insurance space, we work with Max Coupa. So we created a platform so that it is completely plugged in their ecosystem. So it becomes easier from the customer and their agent point of view to run through the system. Now, having said that, from a pure tech point of view, like I said, we already are cloud native. And I think being at the cloud, I think it helps a lot, since I have been in industry from quite a long time and primarily worked on the non-cloud environment. So one takeaway is that, let's say if you're building something, for example, I was setting up a data lake. To set up the same environment in my previous role, it could have taken a couple of months, but here it just take a couple of days. Regioning all the infrastructure and everything is available on a click of it. So those having a cloud native aspect help. This also allow you to be a very dynamically, you can you don't have to upfront plan your capacity. Basically, let's say there's a low increases in the demand. In that case, your ecosystem is scale up automatically. Maybe you can have 100 of instances running at one point in time, and the second moment it could go down to 5 and 10 instances. Those ecosystem and infrastructure has helped a lot in passing through this time, and we continue to build on it.
Right, absolutely. So while we did see a lot of traditional financial services companies, actually deal with the digital tsunami and scale up the infrastructure, I think the fintech companies, which are digital natives, already had a great edge over the traditional financial services companies because of having a robust digital infrastructure already in place. But I want to come to one very important aspect, which is customer. Customer expectations, we all know, are evolving, changing. They're very dynamic, and also they are becoming more demanding. They want anytime, anywhere access, transactions, and they're looking for hyper personalization. So if Abhishek, if you can give or talk about or give some examples of how you're using technology to enhance customer experience by ensuring high performance and personalization.
First of all, we have to see why what is the definition of a customer who wants to be digitally savvy. There was a time 5 years ago where customers and the customer pools were measured using their digital savviness. That this segment is not digitally savvy, so let's not build anything for them because they'll not know how to consume technology. What has happened in the last decade is people know how to post on Facebook and how to consume content. People know how to chat on WhatsApp and send documents. People know how to use phones and have conversations and give information. They're more free about giving even sensitive information over informal channels. And there's a lot of open API infrastructure that governments have opened up for easy information sharing between entities. So all of that has led to actually one strong belief that I have is that there is very little non-digitally savvy customer segment left. Everybody is digitally savvy. The degree of how they can consume technology is different. Now that is reality number one. Reality number two is that the earlier organizations were going after the easier segment, which is digitally savvy, and target them from there. But a large part of the customer pool was left behind because they were not so digitally savvy. Now this WhatsApp and Facebook and chatbots generation has come in. So what is happening is every product-led company is actually approaching from the other end of the spectrum and actually making experiences almost negligible in terms of friction. So what that leads to is your ability to expand the pie. So nobody's going after the same customer now. Fintechs are not actually competing with banks. Fintechs are going after a segment that traditionally have been underserved because of X, Y, and Z reasons in terms of their approachability, in terms of their underwriting of risk, in terms of their knowledge of technology, and so on. So today, if you look at a borrowing experience in terms of getting a loan, and you look at a buying experience in terms of buying a washing machine from an e-commerce player, you'll actually see a lot of similarities. You'll see discoverability, you'll see comparable, you will be able to then choose what you want, and then you'll be able to get that money in your account by the end of the day. Contrast that with something that was done by financial institutions in the past, that was 21 to 30 day kind of cycle. And that's the fundamental shift that is happening. We have to realize that it's not competition at this point of time. Technology is creating a new market. And that's what customer is enabling. Customer is saying, look, I want this. I now know how to buy things from a Flipkart or an Amazon. So why can't I get the same experience to take a loan? And that's where we innovate. So for example, today we have a fully functional chatbot where a customer can actually get the entire loan on WhatsApp. And I'm talking about a small businessman, a Kirana store owner who does not know English, who probably does not have all the documents in front of them. But through account aggregation, through net banking APIs, through NSDL, GST, CKYC, we basically created an experience such that they have to probably spend 5 minutes chatting with us on WhatsApp and they can walk away with a sanction. And that kind of experience actually is revolutionary. Because now what we are enabling is effectively that you don't have to plan to take a loan. You can get credit when you want to. And that's what Anil was mentioning about the fact that just like in the technology infrastructure, you don't have to plan to upgrade your servers and take them to 10x capacity. You can do that with a few clicks of button in a matter of a week or a day or a minute. And that's what customer is also experiencing. So when you revolutionize the experience using technology to that extent, you've created a new market. And now it is easier for everybody to come and innovate in that market. And then the best experience and the best product wins. And the other side of it is also that the new generation is more. So there's somebody in the household who's technologically savvy. It does not have to be a consumer of your product. So while my borrower is a Kirana store owner and they may not be digitally savvy, but their kid is. The kid goes to the college, they know how to use WhatsApp, and so they can help them navigate through that process. So now the split is happening between who's your borrower and who's the processor. And once you start understanding these dynamics, then you can plug in technology at the right place, whether it is about giving the right experience, whether it is about targeting the right segment, and what is the product market fit then thereon. So you're right, Shipra, about the fact that technology in the past was automation. It was about what we could do and can we do that faster. Today, technology is about innovation, which is, can it do something that we haven't done? And that's the fundamental.
Absolutely. So now one thing is that, all three of you are digital natives, and there are so many other, I think there are hundreds of fintechs who are, again, very digitally savvy digital natives. How do you create that customer experience differentiation when your competitors are as digitally mature as you? So how do you create that hyper personalization for the customer and give them the kind of experience that brings them back to you? So Ramkumar, would you like to go ahead with answering that?
Yeah, I think the customer is the king or the queen, right, these days, and they have access to so many options. And as Abhishek was saying, that right now everyone is digitally savvy, and now I can buy from anywhere I want. There's no geo proximity that I need to go, and we actually even enable cross geo payments. Right, so now you can buy or sell across borders so easily. So it's like not restricted to I'm going to be served by this particular person. Right? So that's one form of customization for the users. How do we do that? Right. So one thing is, as he said, Abhishek was saying, all of us are using all these products. We know all these tools, and hence I think building the customer empathy has become much more, because we are also users of the same products. But then how do we personalize, right? So that is where data comes in, and e-commerce or payments and fintech being sort of the foundation of every interaction between a service or a product provider and a customer. We get a lot of data, and also the aggregator platforms coming out, right, puts the power of the user's data in users' hands. Long time back, right, and these were restricted to the certain countries where you had a credit history, and sometimes you had to go pay to get your own credit history. And all that is getting democratized, and the user knows his credit history, and he can choose whom to share it with. And that also enables personalization. And then coming to the now AI ML, that is being used in every domain. Now, how do you harness this data? How do you make that accessible to everyone? I think Anil had talked about building a data lake. Right? So what we do is, build a data lake, make sure that we have golden data, clean data, authoritative data that the entire organization can use to build products on top. And since now every product within Cashfree or within other companies are wanting to do more and more data analysis, right? So how efficient are we there? How cost efficient are we there? Is also going to be important. So building and sharing these raw data as well as analytics to every other team makes it that much more faster for us to build personalized products for our customers. At the same time, all this has to be very secure, being in the fintech space. So making sure that enough processes and enough checks and balances are there, that the data is secure and the data is used in the authorized way that the user wanted it to be used, also makes us gain the trust of the customer. Yeah. So it has to be personalized, but personalized taking into account the customers, what they want to share with us. Right? So I think data is core, and how fast and how best we can analyze that to personalize the customer experience is going to be key, right?
Right. I'm glad you brought up the point of data. In fact, that is going to be my next question. But before that, Anil, I want to understand from you. Now, one thing is that definitely technology, or rather, let's focus on digital technologies, are actually going to make the customer experience or improve the customer experience. But at the same time, technology has to be at the back, has to not be too visible to the customer. For them, it should be, technology, the more visible it is to them, that means the experience is going to be hampered. So how do you ensure that kind of experience where, technology, while it is actually driving the experience, it isn't too visible to the customer?
That's a very, very valid and very, very important point. At a time we sort of missed that on. So I mean, I think most important is that you need to understand what's your customer need. And when customer meet physically, basically you interact with them, apart from the words that he or she is speaking, you also get to know his expression, his emotions, right? But in a digital world, we do not get to know the expressions and the emotion, and that are the probably a very important aspect to know your customer. Unless you know your customer, it will be difficult to provide what kind of service we can offer. So like Ram said, where the data become definitely an importance. Since digital world, emotion and expression is sort of replaced by the data. The various sources of data that you're getting are creating a view about the customer and what sort of he or she might be looking at it, right? Now when it come to your platform, again, like you said, it should not look like the tech. It should, the platform should feel easy to use, and probably he or she should be able to get the right thing he probably looking at that point in time from the platform. Is in the need of money, he or she needed the probably in the education courses or insurance, probably insurance is the thing he is coming to his or mind, or maybe something like what we say, the what kind of product that we have and how we present is very important. For example, for us we have one, for example, card. So shall we pull the card for everybody? No, we need to make sure where the customer is coming from, what could be his probably what segment he belong to. Based on the segment, we try to give that option so that it become easy for him, not like it should confusing for him, right? So that's important point. Other than that, about the services, right? For example, if somebody is, let's say, talking about loan only, somebody is applying for a loan in a bank, and if the bank disperses the money in 2-3 days, it was considered a very good service, right? But today's world, obviously, the expectation has changed. Even if somebody is applying for a loan at the midnight, the expectation is the money should get in the real time. So that comes under service quality. What makes sure the service quality is up, service quality is good, is ensure that at whatever time customer is doing the transaction, everything should run. There should be auto failover, auto healing mechanism, so that customer experience should not hamper. Even if customer experience is getting hampered due to some reason, you should know before the customer reach out to you, so that you build an ecosystem where customer doesn't feel the any pain, even if something goes wrong outside the system. Technology behind the scenes should act as a buddy for him. So that, I would say, in a overall sense, we should keep in mind while developing an ecosystem.
Shipra, if I may add something, I think broadly what is happening is, apart from technology, there are new functional capabilities that have to be created to survive in the new world. And what you're alluding to in terms of the fact that the experience should be seamless, and those are the types of things that design and product are covering in today's world. So typically, when we talk about technology and the CIO and that part of the organization, what we forget is that who's representing the customer. And typically technology is always going to be enabling that experience, but there is somebody who's visualizing and envisioning that experience. And that's the product and the design side of it, which typically I find today that legacy organizations completely miss that layer. And that's where technology ends up automating what an existing process is. But it's the time today is not to automate the process. The time today is to let go of that process. And to let go of that process, you need to have a product team who's representing the customer at the boardroom, and the design team who's converting that need of the customer into the right experience on the interface. So today, human-centric designs, UX flows, customer research, those are all the things that come very naturally to us, but not so naturally to legacy organizations. So we can, everybody can hire techies and engineers, but unless you fill that layer of who's going to revolutionize that experience, which is product and design, it's not going to happen for legacy organizations.
Absolutely. One thing that is really fundamental here, and all of you spoke about, is data, and that is, I mean, as cliched as it may sound, we say data is the new oil, or new soil, and there are different analogies of comparing data. But that said, it is actually at the very foundation on which you are going to be building your, whether it is operational efficiencies, whether it is customer experience, or it is new revenue generation models, new business models. So everything now boils down to the data. Now, while data is the most critical aspect, most organizations are actually not are unable to efficiently leverage or optimally leverage that data to derive actionable intelligence. So what are some of the challenges, and how do you suggest that organizations can most effectively manage their data? And this data is running into multi-petabytes, and it is shared across multiple tools and applications, and then you have to analyze and derive the right intelligence. So there are a whole lot of complexities involved. So Abhishek, any suggestions from your side, or any examples that you want to share from your side on how you are managing the data?
So I always believe that incrementality is not the answer to today's revolution. It has to be new thought process. So for example, again, we mix things. There's technology, there's product, there's data science, and then there's data engineering. The data engineering side of it is the team who takes care of how do you consume data, bring it into the format where it is then easily accessible and consumable by the rest of the organization. In the past, they were called database teams, then big data teams. And today, the complexity of the tools and techniques that are available has actually led to a new job pool itself. There are people who are specializing in being data engineers. They don't know how to write predictive models. They don't know how to write code in Angular and Node, but they actually know how to manage data and bring it into formats that are consumable by various other tools in the organization. So answer number one is typically about realizing the need of that talent pool. If it's not there, then you can't solve for it. The second is the choice of tools. And everybody has a different need, and they're at a different maturity state. Some people have data in simple SQL. Some people would have it in even in Excel files. Some may have it in other formats, and some may need data lakes. What is the right solution for you? A lot of companies have invested in big data and data lakes without realizing that there is no need for it. People are experimenting on blockchain solutions without realizing that actually it could be done through a workflow automation. It does not need a blockchain solution. So sometimes it's over glamorized in terms of what's the solution and what's the problem. But once you realize the right talent pool, the right tool and technique to be used, then execution becomes easier. Typically, we jump into execution faster than the problem setting itself.
Right. Also, Ramkumar, now one of the biggest challenges when it comes to data is that there's not just the volumes, but the veracity. It's also about, there's a lot of unstructured data. There's also, what we call dark data that is lying within the organization on social media across different digital platforms, digital physical platforms. Now, how do you best leverage such data across the different platforms to bring in the kind of right intelligence that you need for your organization?
Maybe I'll just start with adding one point on data lakes, right? I think one thing that we missed and then learned was that monitoring and observability of that whole data is extremely important. So in tech, we do that for the uptime and for the services, etc. But now that data has become so important, that also needs to be continuously monitored for its veracity. Is it correct? Because so many decisions are going to be made based on that, all the customer experience, everything is going to be based on that. So we had to put in tools to make sure that that's always correct, up to date, and reliable. And what we also did was separate out the sort of the storage layers and the compute layers, and then your visualization. right? So there are products that give you the entire thing, but there's so much innovation happening in each of these layers that we wanted to do a plug and play one. Right? So if tomorrow a better solution comes up there, a lot of open source tools are also out there. We wanted to take advantage of that. And so we've consciously made sure that each of these are separated. So the best of breed product comes in. And coming to the question that you asked about, there's so much of variety of these data in unstructured form, structured forms. At some point, right? So again, there are going to be specialized tools to ingest them and then harvest them and then make them consumable for the analysis. So we use as needed, right? So we use the tools as needed to transform them into and then bring them into the data lake and then make them accessible for further analysis. So I think that data lake model has helped us break sort of the silos of separate data. Each one has their insight based on what they see, but they're not able to analyze it in conjunction with another set of data, right, which might maybe come from database systems. So bringing them into a common data lake has helped us harness all that different types of data.
Yeah, in fact, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to leveraging the data is the silos, the different silos in which it exists, which makes it difficult to really leverage it optimally. So, Anil, any best practices that you would like to suggest from your experience in terms of managing data effectively to really get the right actionable insights from that data?
And the larger the organization, the larger the problem is. So like you said, data in silo, and not necessarily the data in silo. Sometimes problem happen whether which is the trustable data. So there are few rules definitely need to be followed. One is that, like Abhishek mentioned, the data engineering should be given as a focus. Data engineering as a core team that is managing data, connecting all the silos together, making sure golden source of data is just one. Any type of data, if it's present at multiple places, there should be one golden source which should be considered the trustworthy. This is something is always right, to avoid confusion within the organization which data to trust and all. This also help you bring more clarity in the data and that effect and more effective usage in the data. And when we talk about data, again, it has a multiple type of data. It could be a transactional data, structured in nature, then semi-structured data we're getting from, let's say, bureau and other information. Then we have a pure and unstructured data like social media and all, right? Each of this data has to be put in the right bracket. And generally the approach should be one that keep the raw data as it is. Where we're pulling, keep the raw data. Do not touch the raw data, try to transform the data in between. Then there should be a separate layer which curate the data, so that you always have a place to go back, and the curated layer is there from where you can build the analytics and the intelligence, and then you can actually build the analytics of whatever type you bring, whether you try to getting let's say our customer service is talking to our customer. We can have those voice analytics done, and to understand what kind of feedback that we can give it to our team and understand from the customer why they are calling, what's happening. So those insights need to be generated. For that, data is important. But if you have a clear segregation of what data is, and then your ability to consume and mix those data and bring the
So, in fact, when we are talking about this such volumes of data, I mean, security becomes very critical. So, one is security, and of course, there are the regulatory requirements which are there. And third aspect is resilience. Now, you're talking about 24/7 operations. You're talking about a person, if he is applying for a loan at 12 o'clock in the night, he should be able to do that. So therefore, cyber resilience is going to be is absolutely critical for your business. So Abhishek, how are you preparing your business to be resilient and against any cyber threats, any attacks? And also what we're seeing is that all the new age companies, as they're growing, as they're receiving, Series A funding, Series B, Series C, and as they grow, the cyber attackers or the cyber criminals are shifting their focus to these companies because they are seeing them as good targets for attacks. So how do you really protect against against the cyber attacks, against cybercrime activity, and also ensure that your systems keep running and at the same time meet the regulatory requirements?
So, Shipra, I mean, I'll keep the regulatory part out because regulatory part out does not really ensure that everybody is protected. It's a set of best practices that everybody has to follow, and it's easier to kind of tick the box on the regulatory part. In terms of really being resilient and protected, I think it's a journey of being reactive to being proactive. A lot of times at early stages of the organization, there isn't enough time spent on cybersecurity, and that's why some of the out-of-the-box solutions like putting everything on AWS and using technologies that are protected by somebody else is an easier solution. But as you move along, I think the attack vectors are increasing continuously, as we are all seeing, and at least what we've done is we've invested significantly into three things. One is the network of agencies and the cybersecurity partners that you work with, because I think this is a battle that can't be won alone. You can't build that capability, unlike a data science capability of having an algorithm, which is my IP, and I can build it myself and keep it under a closed box within the company. I think cybersecurity is something where we rely a lot on the cybersecurity partners who make us aware of the threats, who continuously scan our systems, and keep giving us inputs into how to make it better. That's absolutely number one. If somebody has to do one thing, then they should do that. The second is having an internal team who is doing scans at a much more regular frequency than the external vendors. And that's important, and which means just like data engineering, it's important to create cyber roles within the company who would effectively manage the entire DevOps cycles, they manage the security of the servers, and make sure that there is no leakage of data that is happening on a day-to-day basis. The third, and I think the most complex bit to do, is essentially changing the culture of the organization to be aware at all times. Because we are in ultra growth mode. And when you're in a hyper growth mode, you effectively end up cutting corners. And those cutting corners could sometimes lead to a bad customer experience, could sometimes lead to an inadvertent process outcome, but in a bad way, it could lead to much serious outcomes like a cyber threat. And so, and nobody in the organization wants that as an outcome. It's just that they're not aware that this could lead to that. And at least my time is spent a lot in terms of making the company aware about the fact that these are the outcomes of the actions that we take. And these are the potential things that we could do better. Now, of course, you can wrap it around an ISO certification and say, okay, if you're an ISO certified company, you'd automatically take care of these things. But an ISO certification is a 12-month roadmap. So am I going to expose the organization for 12 months in the absence of an ISO certification? No. We would effectively take care of things through behavioral changes, process changes, awareness programs, follow it up with an internal team scan, and then, of course, wrap it up with the external security. So that's our protocol in terms of how we manage cybersecurity. But as I said, it's still a journey of being reactive to proactive. Everybody can do better.
Absolutely. So I want to add to the aspect where you spoke about cutting corners. One thing that we are seeing with startups and in general, and this would apply to fintechs as well, is the need for agility. Speed is the key. They have to be time to market is really shrinking rapidly. They have to be very fast, and in doing that, sometimes security can take a backseat, in favor of speed. So, Ramkumar, in such a scenario, how do you really ensure that resilience and security while balancing it with speed and agility? How do you balance the two out?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right? So we always have people and time are our constraints. And so many requirements for that, right? Roadmap has to be done, it has to be secure, it has to be resilient even to the spikes in traffic. Right? That's a constant balance that we keep striking. And what we do is come to a consensus as to what are the different priorities. Yeah, I have to deliver on this roadmap, but we can't cut corners on security. And we can't cut corners on availability. So we actually bake all of this into our unified roadmap, both the product as well as what we call as the non-functional requirements, and then prioritize that together. And product engineering, we actually brainstorm continuously for the year as well as quarter, and then make sure enough attention is given to all these aspects. Right? Releasing a product without it being secure, sort of entirely, we might even lose that customer base. Right? So, but by making it secure, we are making them trust our products much, much more. And actually, that will increase the adoption. Right? So, if the people are sure that I'm really just a very simple two-factor authentication added to a product gives them that security feeling that I'm okay using this particular product. Right? Even myself personally, a few years back, wasn't that comfortable using a credit card, right? Maybe a decade back in India. But now I know that I will be taken care of. Even if something goes wrong, I have ways to address that. So building security into the products is also helping us, as well as making sure our infrastructure is continuously scanned and audited. We go in for penetration tests, both from our internal teams, as well as having external people whose sole motivation is to sort of try to break the system and then address them proactively. But it's going to be a cat and mouse game, right? As we put in better and better security practices, there's going to be something new coming in, which can be break through that, right? So in those situations, how quickly can we recover? I think that's also sort of important. Is your infrastructure able to scale, not just to handle the genuine traffic, but if say you're going to be hit by a DDoS attack, can you really, really quickly scale your system to, as one way to thwart the DDoS attack is to be able to scale really, really fast so that they lose interest in that they can't do anything. Right? So investing in this and consciously investing a portion of our time into that is sort of helping us be agile yet be secure.
So you're not just it's about defending. It's also about how ready you are to be able to respond to any incident and being back functioning as in as little time as possible. So Anil, I mean, this is true that you can't even, I think even a minute of downtime actually can result into millions of dollars of losses, or if I am talking in Indian currency, then crores of losses. And of course, the brand reputation and the customer experience, and the customers, what they think of the brand, this actually takes a big hit. So cyber resilience definitely is the topmost strategy has to be the topmost strategy for an organization like yours or all of you. So how do you ensure that that cyber resilience actually comes to the forefront of your strategy and not really becomes a back seat issue, which which you see in hindsight, and it is actually at the forefront of any of your initiatives?
I think being a financial organization, at least this thing comes to us very naturally, that security is paramount. And so the way I look at it, it should be part of the core architecture and the core framework. For example, when we say software development life cycle, it should be secure SDLC, so that the build will not pass unless the basis security test also passes through. So it become a culture. So that's why we do not have to take a separate buy-in for people to take add a security along with the building a new feature. Other than that, I have a separate dedicated team. This responsibility is just for security. That means they have to deal with various different vendors, ensure that a regular VAPT and other penetration testing is happening. So this person's responsibility is to do that only. She don't care about what happened, whether we are building a new product getting launched or not getting launched. So that responsibility also helps ensure there is a culture and there is a work going on around that direction. And the third aspect is we have to be prepared, saying, what if something goes wrong? Let's say X thing get hacked. We have to make sure we think from that perspective. Even if something goes wrong, my data, consumer data, is protected, and I'm able to restart the system immediately somewhere else. So those kind of thinking is what matter, and that's what we are following. Apart from that, I also believe that external certification we should look at, since in a way certification, while they are regulatory guidance, but in a way it also enforces and validated that as an organization what you're doing is also, from auditor point of view, is also validated. So these four aspects that we have from our side, it's a secure SDLC, then VAPT from the external vendors, and monitoring and certification. And again, dedicated team for this.
So basically, security has to be built in right at the design stage. So when you're coming out with a new product or service, it should be built right into the design of any new offering that you are.
And once you do that, now overall cost become less. If you build a product and then you try to add security, it become little difficult. But if the security is thought through from the day one, it become easier.
So I want to conclude this discussion with one answer from all of you. It could be a quick answer. So starting with you, Abhishek, any in terms of the future plans, any one or two technologies which you see as the game changers and which you're planning to leverage in a big way and see as the game changers for you?
From a lending perspective, I think we're very, very bullish on the new account aggregator initiative that has come from India Stack. So that should allow a seamless exchange of banking data, and it would expand to other forms of data, which will effectively allow not just lenders but many other ecosystems in the financial services area to give better customer experiences, to reduce risk, better selection of customers, and so on. And that, when coupled with the whole GST framework and the open credit enablement network, will allow a better financial inclusion in the country. So as a company, we are very bullish on that. And as a participant in this ecosystem, we are also very bullish about the fact that India is there's a lot of innovation coming in to drive financial inclusion. And whether it is in government policies, whether it is in technology, whether it is in investments coming into that space and everything else, it should the next 5 years will look very different from the previous 5 years. We'll all be sitting in a panel discussion 5 years down the line, and we'll probably be talking about a completely different set of problems than what we are today.
I won't even give it a 5-year time frame. I think it's evolving so fast, the dynamics, that I think probably even 2 years down the line, it could be a totally different discussion altogether. So Ramkumar, what are the technologies on your radar which are going to be key for your organization going forward?
Yeah, I think innovation is tremendously happening in India, right? And thanks to all the companies as well as all the government initiatives that are happening. I'm sure a lot of new products are going to be coming out. One focus area is banking as a service. So we recently launched a product where you can open accounts through our service. We plan to invest more and bring more products in that thing. And essentially our goal is to be the platform or vendor of choice for banking as a service. And then more products can be built on top of them as well. So we will empower our other companies to build that. And we will continue to invest in more and more payment options. Right? So bring more and more customization and personalization to the end customers. So I think these two are our focus areas to be a payments platform powering.
Great. Anil, what about you? Any technologies which are on your radar? I mean, a lot of them are on your radar, but in terms of prioritization, which are the game changers?
So basically, in India, I think the government of India is the biggest disruptor in innovation, especially in the financial sector. So a lot of things is in the pipeline, like Abhishek mentioned, account aggregator and UPI 2.0. Other than this thing, I think what personally I'm looking at, maybe it might take couple of year time, but there is a lot of opportunity of collaboration between, let's say, technology partner, then banks, then NBFC. So those collaboration can become much smoother if we move towards a blockchain based system. So that is something I believe will come in future, and that will make the integration even much more seamless than what we have today.
Great, thank you so much. It was great talking to you, and especially I think the last question where you kind of give a peep into what the future you think will look like is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for your time, and definitely, digital is going to be the foundation, whether for new business models or bringing out new revenue streams, better serve customers, empower employees, or just improve operational efficiencies. It's going to be at the core of everything. And therefore, how and what you prioritize as far as your digital strategy is concerned is really going to be the key. So thank you so much for your time. And it was great talking to you.